Unexpectedly, 9 strangers find themselves trapped inside a mansion, leaving them without a choice but to end each other's lives in exchange for $5 million and their freedom. One night, a group of men scattered throughout the city captures unsuspecting individuals outside a club, the streets, and even at their workplace. Shortly after, Leah, a dancer, awakens in an unfamiliar room and finds a man sleeping on the bed beside hers. Confused, she tries to seek clarity on her situation, so she opens the door and calls for a possible presence. To her dismay, she finds no one. Therefore, she decides to investigate the area. In the adjacent room, she discovers another 2 unconscious men on the bed, leaving her uneasy. She proceeds to find a way out, but the main door is locked, making her realize that their captor is committed to keeping them confined in the mansion. Leah starts to feel her panic rising, but she still attempts to find a possible exit. Once more, she's disappointed because the windows and even the door in the basement are cemented shut. For this reason, Leah can't stop herself from having a panic attack, causing her to collapse unconscious. Just then, Father Duffy, who finds her reaction humorous, calmly awakens her from her slumber. A police officer named Jay assures the crowd that Leah simply had a panic attack. Speaking of the crowd, Leah is surprised to see that there are 6 more people inside the mansion who happen to be Claire, a tennis player, Al B, a rapper, Shona, a substance dealer, Francis, a musician, Cynthia, his wife, and Max, a fashion designer. Suddenly, a voice from a speaker interrupts their momentary peace, causing them to panic. The voice is known as the Watcher, and he explains that he randomly chose them for what they are. He highlights the fact that they will be his test subjects, not for a scientific purpose, but purely for his entertainment. Moreover, he warns them that he'll be watching them through the lens of 75 cameras and microphones installed throughout the mansion. Then, he promises to reward the sole survivor with their freedom and a cash prize of $5 million. After hearing his words, the group enters a frenzied discussion, trying to determine whether their current situation is merely a stunt. Jay believes they're in a game and proceeds to pull out his gun. Calmly, he explains that their captor didn't take his weapon, which means that he's determined to have only one winner. A furious Shona expresses her frustration toward Jay, thinking that he has an unfair advantage. Al B, who had a traumatizing experience with a police officer, confronts Jay at the possibility that he can't also be trusted. Before things escalate, Father Duffy and Francis intervene. Once they're separated, Francis voices his assumption that the Watcher wants them to kill each other. Though Jay agrees with him, he advises the group to work together to escape the mansion, reasoning that even if someone wins, he supposes that the Watcher will eventually kill the winner. Immediately, he orders the willing players to help him carry the table slab and uses it to try breaking the doorway. Unfortunately for them, their efforts are all in vain, leaving them disheartened. Jay refuses to surrender, so he tries to shoot the windows, but the blockage is too thick to break through. Determined, Jay encourages the other players to split up and check the entire house for a possible exit. Later, the police officer heads to the basement and finds that the floor is brittle. Hopeful, he starts to dig a hole using a steel rod, but he soon discovers that a metal layer is hiding underneath, causing him to abandon his plan. Shona, with a rising frustration, lashes out at Claire after she finds her drinking liquor instead of helping them find an exit. A tug of war ensues between the 2 women, so Jay intervenes and snatches the drink from Claire's grip. He proceeds to conceal the rest of the liquor in the safe, for he believes it's best if they plan their exit in a sober state. Following this, some of the players discuss their rising desire to acquire the $5 million, especially since they're desperate for money. Father Duffy strongly opposes this, because it means they're starting to consider killing each other. Jay shares the same sentiment, so he swears that he'll do anything to prevent it. At that moment, the group hears a strange sound emerging from the kitchen, compelling them to check it. There, they stumble upon a dumbwaiter containing their meal, which is composed of only chicken and potatoes. Since they're in no position to complain, they decide to share the meal on the dining table. Jay orders the players only to get a portion enough for them, but Al B thinks otherwise. As he hogs the food all to himself, Jay reprimands him for his selfishness. During their meal, the players take this time to introduce themselves, which leads them to learn about each other's occupations. One person catches everyone's attention, and it's Shona, who shows her ankle monitor. She admits that she's on parole for being a substance dealer. Now she's worried because her prolonged stay in the mansion will send her back to prison. On the bright side, Father Duffy thinks her ankle monitor will attract the authorities' attention and help them escape. After dinner, Jay and Father Duffy facilitate the distribution of the rooms among the players using a lottery draw. Claire picks Shona, and the pair can't hide their disdain toward each other. Jay reprimands them for being particular, so he reminds them that they agreed with it earlier. Then, he announces that Father Duffy and the couple, Francis and Cynthia, will have their own rooms. Al B and Max aren't keen on sharing a room, whereas Leah, without any complaints, informs Jay that they're roommates. That evening, Shona snoops into Claire's belongings without her permission and unearths a stack of photographs. She feels a tinge of envy at the woman's lavish lifestyle, as she has to profit from substances just to get by. Before she can browse her photos further, Claire gets out of the bathroom, and the woman is furious at Shona for her nosiness. Meanwhile, in the couple's room, Francis expresses his growing desire for the $5 million cash prize. Cynthia opposes it, knowing full well that they will have to harm people just to acquire the money. The next morning, while the players are still asleep, an intruder sneaks inside Jay and Leah's room and attempts to steal his gun. Thanks to Jay's quick reflexes, he's able to prevent the intruder's plan. The physical altercation between them awakens Leah. Eventually, the intruder pushes him away and hurriedly leaves, making Jay and Leah fail to identify him. Due to the commotion, the players gather in the hallway, and Jay confronts them, as he assumes that one of them is the intruder. Judging Al B's character, Francis and Max think he's the culprit, but this only infuriates him for getting unfairly targeted. Francis and Max then resume their discussion, but this time, they're speaking in French. Assuming they're plotting something, Claire calls them out, whereas Al B orders them to only speak in English. As another argument starts to brew, Father Duffy intervenes and advises the group to set aside their differences when confronting an issue. Soon enough, the players decide to return to their respective rooms, but Jay remains in the hallway. He voices that being soft among the players won't work, because he knows how desperate people can be. Regardless, Father Duffy is firm in having faith in humankind. Shortly after, the group hears a sound from outside, and Jay supposes it's the authorities who tracked Shona. Not wasting any time, the group heads to the main entrance and pounds the door with all their might. Impatient, Jay fires his gun to attract the authorities' attention. While they pour their hearts out for the possibility of a rescue, Francis watches from afar, and he finds delight in their desperation. In the end, the group breaks down in tears, for they are starting to lose hope when their efforts are futile. Because of this, Jay fishes out the key from his pocket and allows the other players to indulge themselves in liquor. Later, Leah leaves the bathroom when she encounters Francis, who tries to flirt with her. Uncomfortable with his presence, Leah rejects his advances and reminds him that he has a wife. Just after their interaction, Francis heads to their bathroom and wraps a decanter in fabric to muffle the noise of him breaking it into pieces. Upon getting a sharp glass shard, he hides the rest in the toilet tank. After this, Francis ascends to the living room to check on Cynthia, only to find Al B making a move on her. He confronts the pair, but Cynthia defends their actions by saying that they're just having fun. Still, Francis feels betrayed, so he reprimands Cynthia. Al B takes offense to his words and pushes Francis, leading them to fight. As Al B overpowers Francis, Cynthia begins to panic, so she attempts to pacify the altercation. Al B, who's blinded by his anger, pushes her, causing her to knock her head against the balcony railing. This instantly claims Cynthia's life, and Francis, alongside the rest of the players, becomes horrified at the woman's grim fate. Because of Al B's actions, Jay imprisons him in his room. Al B is upset at his decision and demands that the police officer let him go. Despite this, Jay remains firm, as he wants Al B to atone for his sins. With their confined situation, the group has no means to give Cynthia a proper burial, so they simply cover her body with a fabric and hide her in the basement. Moments later, at dinner, Jay delivers their food, but he orders them to start rationing because the Watcher is sending less food. Overhearing this, Al B demands his share of food, which bothers Father Duffy because he feels bad about starving him. However, Jay believes it's a just punishment, for he's a criminal. Since Al B's demands start to bother the group, Leah hands Jay her portion and pleads with him to give it to the rapper to silence him. Though against his will, Jay eventually agrees, but he clarifies that he'll only give him what he deserves. In the rapper's room, Jay hands Al B a small piece of potato, which further infuriates him. The police officer then returns to the table, but he's confused because Father Duffy is missing. He soon realizes that the priest plans to give Al B more food, so he sprints back to the rapper's room. True to his hunch, the priest has opened the door, allowing Al B to escape. Due to his pent-up fury, Al B grabs the steel rod and proceeds to beat Jay until he perishes. When Al B returns to his senses, he begins to feel remorseful, prompting him to flee the scene. Father Duffy approaches Jay to check on him, but sadly, he sustained fatal injuries. Before he breathes his last, Jay entrusts his firearm to the priest, whom he trusts the most among the players. The following night, The 7 remaining players are surprised to find more food in the dumbwaiter, accompanied by a note congratulating them for giving the Watcher an entertaining scene. Francis quickly gathers a massive amount of food, much to Father Duffy's disapproval. In Francis's defense, he's just getting Al B's reward for doing all the work of eliminating Jay. Right away, he heads to Al B's room, and the rapper quickly becomes defensive, assuming that Francis will avenge his wife. Contrary to his assumption, Francis hands him his portion of food, which makes Al B apologetic for killing Cynthia. Francis expresses his understanding of his situation, and even deems his wife's death an accident. Meanwhile, Max, who's consumed with greed, hides in the corner to devour his food. A few moments later, Father Duffy, alongside Leah, heads to Al B's room to check on him. However, the pair are horrified to find the rapper's lifeless body, appearing that he harmed himself. For Leah, foul play is involved because she doesn't perceive Al B to have intentions of wanting to perish. Taking this into consideration, the priest assembles the other players in the hallway to interrogate them. Shona accuses Francis of being the culprit, for she remembers he's the last person Al B is with. Despite Francis's efforts to deny it, the group refuses to believe him and urges the priest to punish him. To halt their accusations, Francis then shifts the blame to Max, pointing out that his scarf was wrapped around Al B's neck. Later that day, Francis retreats to his room, where he tries on Cynthia's lipstick. He then starts to dance, which shows that he's starting to lose his sanity. In the other room, Shona rummages through Claire's bag again and finds her jewelry. With a deep yearning for material possessions, Shona tries them on, but Claire catches her in the act. The pair engages in another argument, with Claire chastising Shona for not respecting her personal space. Since Shona refuses to acknowledge her mistake, Claire is provoked to slap her, leading them to hurt each other. Fed up, Claire sneaks behind Shona, who's calming her nerves with a cigarette, and unremorsefully ends her life with a corkscrew. Meanwhile, Francis visits Leah in her bathroom, where he finds her washing her face. Taking advantage of this, Francis pulls the light fixture from the wall and dumps it on the sink, electrocuting Leah. By the kitchen, Father Duffy requests Max to cooperate with him to survive because he only trusts him and Leah. However, Max is hesitant because he wants to know what he'll gain from their partnership. Father Duffy refuses to give him more food because he finds it unfair to the other players. Due to this, Max proceeds to steal the food, compelling the priest to threaten him with the gun. Now, the priest guides Max to his room to imprison him. But once they reach the hallway, they find the door to Shona's room ajar. Curious, Father Duffy checks inside, only for him to be horrified at the sight of Shona's lifeless body. Claire lies that her roommate threatened to kill her, but the priest decides to imprison her. When Father Duffy leads Claire outside, he visits Leah's room to check on her as he's worried for her. There, the priest discovers Leah on the floor, and he's shocked at her sudden passing. As the man is distracted, Claire uses this opportunity to escape from him. Once it's the evening, Francis looks for Father Duffy as it's time for dinner, but he's surprised to find him mourning Leah. Without a choice, Francis feigns innocence at Leah's death, but the priest sees through his deceit. Therefore, he chastises him for sacrificing others' lives just for his desire for money. Father Duffy then threatens him with the gun, but Francis is unafraid. He knows that it's against the priest's morals, so he taunts him to weaken him. Provoked, Father Duffy eventually pulls the trigger, but Francis's injury isn't fatal enough. For this reason, Francis is able to escape from the priest's sight. Amidst this, Leah regains her consciousness and witnesses the incident. Afraid for her life, she sprints into a room to hide. Out of panic, Leah slips down the bathroom floor and knocks off the toilet lid, allowing her to discover the glass shards Francis has hidden. Right after, Father Duffy searches for Claire, only to find her at Max's mercy. The priest orders him to release her, but Max refuses, afraid that she'll take all of their food. As a result of his resistance, Father Duffy fatally shoots him. Ashamed of his actions, the priest proceeds to pray for forgiveness, unaware that Francis is behind him. The man unremorsefully thrusts the glass shard on the priest's back, immobilizing him. Immediately, Francis steals the gun and shoots Claire before proceeding to take Father Duffy's life. Thinking that he's the only survivor left, Francis celebrates his supposed win and demands the Watcher for his compensation. Just then, Leah accidentally breaks the toilet lid, alerting Francis of her presence. This leads him to track the source of the sound, and he's taken aback when Leah emerges from his room. Just to escape from him, Leah enters the farthest room in the hallway and hides under the bed. In the end, Francis finds her hiding spot, and the man is delighted to see her helplessness. He proceeds to drag her out, but Leah refuses to surrender, so she stabs his leg using the glass shard she has recovered. Right away, Leah sprints upstairs to find a way to hide, but Francis corners her, leaving her fearing for her life. All of a sudden, Francis then charges at her, causing them to fall from the balcony. Unfortunately for him, Leah lands on him, leading her to stab him unknowingly. Instead of celebrating her win, she breaks down in tears, for she has claimed someone's life. To her surprise, the front door opens, and Leah decides to take her exit. There, she finds a bag containing the money, which she finally takes as recognition of her win. However, when she steps outside, she finds herself in the other part of the house. She stands frozen in place as 4 more survivors, who are also carrying their bags of money, greet her. With this in mind, Leah feels hopeless as she realizes that the game is far from over.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.